Close your eyes and imagine a round building with several doors around it. From the outside, it seems that each door leads to a different place. But when you enter through any of them, you find that they all lead to the same central room. It's always the same room, with the same table, the same chair, and the same person attending. It doesn't matter which door you came through, inside it's always the same. This is the essence of what we call Singleton. It is a way of saying within a system. For this specific matter, there is only one official place, a unique room, a single control center. In real life, some things work much better when there is only one of each. Think of a condominium concierge. If each resident had their own entrance, visitors would be lost, orders would be lost, and security would be in chaos. A single ordinance avoids confusion. Information does not spread in several places. The rules are the same for everyone, and all entries are synchronized. In systems, the same happens. There are issues that need a single point so that everyone speaks the same language and uses the same decisions. Singleton was born to solve this, to avoid duplicity, mismatch of information, and the feeling of everyone does it their own way. Let's translate without jargon. Singleton is an agreement. For this issue, there is a single instance, that is, a single person responsible, and the rest of the system talks to that same room. Instead of each party creating their own version, everyone uses the same official reference. It is as if the company defined a red phone that calls directly to the center without having to find out who answers today. This agreement avoids disagreements and saves effort. Examples help to fix. Think about settings, opening hours, server address, access keys, discount rules. You want all areas of the system to see the same settings, coming from the same place. If each team keeps its copy, old versions and contradictory decisions soon emerge. Another example is the activity log, such as a ledger of everything that happened. It is common to have a single place to write down what happened, orders, errors, important notices. If each piece of the system writes down, in its own way and in its own notebook, no one can reconstruct history. One more, shared memory of popular information, the famous bulletin board. Instead of each person in the office saving their notice, there is a single mural. Whoever needs to see it goes there. Those who need to update, too. Everyone looks at the same mural. This idea of a single mural translates well the spirit of the Singleton. Imagine that your city has a single large clock in the central square. It marks the official time. All stores check the file for him. All schools ring the bell looking at that clock. In theory, any store could have its own clock. But if everyone follows their own, confusion begins. One opens later, another closes earlier. Half the city is mismatched. The clock in the square is the Singleton of time, a unique reference for everyone. The first benefit is coherence. When there is only one place, the decisions on that subject are consistent. If the pricing policy is there, everyone applies it in the same way. The second is economy. It is cheaper to maintain a single point than several scattered ones, each with its own care. The third is the ease of finding. When you know that something has an official notary, you don't have to hunt in 20 different drawers. The fourth is routine security. Because it is unique, this point can be treated with more care, with better checks and protections. Now comes the B side. The fact that an idea is useful does not mean that it is good for everything. The first danger is to turn the Singleton into a stuff pull. He starts by solving a simple task and, little by little, accumulates more and more responsibilities. Suddenly, the single room has become a jumble of functions that do not talk to each other. Result, it becomes heavy, confusing, and difficult to change. The second danger is to become addictive to everything. If everyone can only work through that single point, it can become a bottleneck. It's like a city with only one bridge. Efficient when the city is small, very complicated when the city grows and everyone wants to pass at the same time. The third danger is mystery. When a lot depends on a single point, any strange behavior that appears can turn into a treasure hunt. Is the problem in the central room? Not infrequently, this delays investigations and confuses the team. Here's a mental test in 4 questions, all without technical terms. First, is there a real reason to be unique? For example, we need an official view of what's going on, or we want a central setting. If so, point in favor. Second, would having multiple copies cause confusion? If the answer is absolutely, I am in favor. Third, does everyone really need to look at the same place? If the idea is to ensure that everyone speaks the same language, it makes sense. Fourth, will this become a blockade? If that one point is to be overwhelmed, it may not be the best choice. If most of the answers are yes, Singleton's idea helps. If there is a lot of maybe, it is worth rethinking. Sometimes it is better to leave each area responsible for its piece, as long as there is a good way to coordinate the whole. There is a close relative of Singleton that is worth mentioning lightly, the one per key. Think locker locks at the gym. There is no single lock for everyone. There is one per locker. In technology, sometimes it makes sense to have one unit per group, per store, per region, per language. It is different from one for the entire system. This simple comparison helps you not to force Singleton where, in fact, what you want is one per category. Let's imagine the day-to-day life of a system that sells products online. In the morning, the price ruler updates the central table. Throughout the day, the website, the app, and the store's cashier consult the same source to find out the price. When a customer requests a duplicate, the history is recorded in the central occurrence book. All agents see the same history. When an important alert happens, it's sent to an official bulletin board. It doesn't matter if the notice came from the website or the physical store, everyone sees the same. Notice how these scenes breathe the idea of a single point of truth. The fun of Singleton is exactly that, to become the registry office of that matter. Not everything that is popular needs to be unique. A freight calculator, for example, can exist in several places at the same time, as long as they all use the same rule. A virtual attendant may have many clones serving different people. What needs to be unique is perhaps the knowledge base they consult. It is common to confuse same rule with same place. The rule can be shared, but everyone can have their own copy to work with, without having to go through a single room. Some signs show that you chose well. The first is when people say, finally, everyone uses the same reference. Stopped the divergence. The second is when the questions are easier to answer. It's on the central panel. Check it on the official wall. The third is when the change of an important policy happens in one place, and the effect appears coherently throughout the system. Finally, when the single point has clear limits, it does not try to solve the world. It solves that issue, and it solves it well. If you start hearing phrases like, it all depends on that place, if you fall, no one works, it's difficult to test changes because it affects a lot of things. You have a warning. Perhaps the single point is carrying too many responsibilities. Another sign, every meeting ends with the phrase, you have to go through the central. Instead of being a facilitator, Singleton became a toll booth. The cure, almost always, is to return to the original purpose. What problem should it solve? Cut the rest. And if the system has grown, think about dividing what has become excessive concentration. I like a 3-step formula, simple enough to fit on a napkin. Step 1. This is a notary's office, an official place for a specific matter. Step 2. We avoid parallel copies. The information lives in this registry office, not in 1,000 lost spreadsheets. Step 3. Everyone consults here. When you need it, come here. When you upgrade, update here. This explanation, repeated with examples, usually aligns those who arrive with the way of the house without having to go into complicated terms. Myth 1. Singleton is always good. Right. It is good for subjects that call for uniqueness. Myth 2. If it's important, it has to be unique. Importance is not the same thing as uniqueness. A service can be vital, and yet exist in multiple copies to serve many people at once. Myth 3. Singleton solves any mess. If the mess is a process or a responsibility, putting everything in the same room only changes the address of the mess, not the nature of it. Organization is more than putting things together. It is to define limits and clarity of roles. When you wonder if it's worth having a single point, skim through this reminder. First, is there a real reason to be one? Second, would having several generate confusion or waste? Third, does the volume of use fit in a single point? Fourth, is the purpose clear and limited? If the answers sound firm, you're on the right track. If they get hazy, it may be best to use another strategy, such as one per key, or simply shared rules without needing a single room. Singleton, in essence, is an organizational decision. It's about choosing a center for a theme so that people and parts of the system look at the same place. It shines when it brings coherence, economy, and clarity, and slips when it tries to embrace more than it should. Keep 3 phrases: one room, many doors, to remember oneness, one notary per subject, to remember the scope, and use when it avoids confusion, to remember the criterion. If you put these 3 ideas into practice, you're already using the pattern maturely. No magic formulas, no unnecessary techniques, and focusing on what really matters: people understanding people and systems helping people.